Everyone watched that Bencic scoreline and reached for the wrong conclusion. 6-4, 6-love. And within a day, the entire tour had decided the same thing, that we'd finally seen her ceiling, that Toronto exposed a hole, that Washington was a fluke week instead of a new level. I watched the same match and came away believing something close to the opposite. What I saw is exactly why I think she's the most dangerous seed anywhere in the US Open draw, and why I've been saying this to my own team for a week now, quietly, before anyone wanted to hear it. She wasn't beaten by Belinda Bencic. She was beaten by a schedule, and that schedule doesn't exist at a Grand Slam. Count what she actually did in 14 days. She won her first WTA title in Washington, beating the defending champion, the 2 seed, the 3 seed, and the top seed, coming back from a set down in a final that got rained out and had to finish a day late. Then she flew straight to Toronto and, 2 days later, played 3 sets against Alicia Parks. Then another 3-set match at night against Katie McNally, with an ankle scare buried in the second set. Then she walked out for round 4 against a former Toronto champion, and her legs simply weren't there anymore. Of course they weren't. 7 matches in 11 days, 1 of them stretched across a rain delay, 2 of them 3-setters, 1 with an ankle that wasn't fully right, all of it sitting on top of the emotional weight of a first career title. That's not a tennis problem. That's just physics. And physics fixes itself with rest. Here's what the Open gives her that Toronto never did: a day off between every round. 7 matches spread across 2 weeks instead of crammed into 6 days. Time to sleep, time to eat properly, time to actually watch film on the next opponent. The exact flaw everyone's writing about this week is the flaw the format removes by design. Everybody's bracing for the tired version of her. She isn't going to be tired. And the rest days are only the first half of the argument. The part nobody's talking about is that she learns while she's playing. Every opponent who's faced her describes the same thing in different words. Osaka said she couldn't locate a pattern. Pegula took the first set off her in the DC final and then lost the match because beating that first set meant showing her hand completely. I've felt it across the net myself. You hand her information and she's built a counter to it before the changeover. Now give that player a full day to sit with what she picked up instead of 40 hours and another match already looming. At Toronto, she was processing on the run, with no time to actually absorb it. At the Open, she gets 24 hours between rounds to break down film with her team and fold it straight back into her game. A player whose main weapon is adaptation, handed the most processing time of any tournament on the calendar. That is not the player Bencic beat. Most players fade across a slam, and it took me a while to understand why it isn't really tactical, it's physical first, and the tactics erode behind it. By the second week you're managing your body, your shot selection shrinks, and you start taking the cheap option instead of the right one because your legs won't give you anything else. Her patterns aren't physical, they're informational, and information doesn't get tired. 7 matches means 7 opponents worth of data by the final, and every round makes the next one easier for her while it gets harder for whoever's across the net. A 500 gives her 4 matches to learn from. A slam gives her 7. The format doesn't just erase her weakness, it multiplies her strength. She's seeded at Flushing Meadows for the first time, which protects her from an ugly first round and means no seed can find her before the third. And the third round is exactly where some top 10 player is going to glance at a ranking in the 20s and feel comfortable, right before finding out why that number is misleading everyone in the locker room. Rankings measure the last 12 months. The last 12 months include a stretch where she was a completely different player from the one who just knocked out 4 seeds in Washington. By the time the number catches up, she'll already be somewhere else. New York matters here for reasons that have nothing to do with tennis. I have some standing to say this. I won there myself, and it's the tournament that rearranged my life. The noise at that place is unlike anywhere else. Planes overhead, a crowd that talks through points, night sessions under lights with 23,000 people who've been drinking since mid-afternoon and don't care about etiquette. Most players are rattled the first time they feel it. She won't be. Leylah Fernandez, after losing to her in front of a loud, hostile crowd, said it wasn't that she blocked the noise out, she genuinely didn't seem to register it. That's not something you can coach. And there's a second layer nobody's pricing in. New York has one of the largest Filipino communities in the country, and if she plays a night match at Ashe, part of that stadium is going to sound like a home crowd. Playing a road match at your own home slam is a strange, lonely feeling, and it costs points. The surface plays into this too. Flushing is medium fast with a true bounce, quicker than clay, slower than grass, which means rallies last long enough for her to read them without letting a pure grinder simply outlast her physically. That's the exact window where a player who thinks beats a player who just hits. And she's spent the entire month living on this exact surface in Washington and Toronto, going 7-1 with a title, while the rest of the draw is still adjusting. I understand the threat better than most because of how I play. My defense has won me 2 majors, because most opponents eventually overhit trying to put balls away that keep coming back. She doesn't overhit. I've never once seen her get frustrated by a ball she thought was already a winner. She just asked a different question instead. A player who responds to good defense by changing the question rather than adding pace is the single hardest matchup for my game, and I still don't have a full answer for it. There's also a scouting trap here that works in her favor. At a slam, opponents get real prep time. But the tape they're studying is always from a match against somebody else, and she never repeats herself. Osaka's team prepared off her match against Svitolina, and Osaka said afterward that none of it showed up. All that preparation, and it was accurate for a different match. Watching a carefully built plan collapse in the opening games, with a whole match still ahead and nothing left to fall back on, is a worse feeling at a slam than anywhere else on tour. I'll be fair about the other side of this, because it exists. She's never played 7 matches at a major. Her best result is a 4th round, and the second week feels like nothing else. The pressure is different, the bodies are different, and you can't simulate it beforehand. That's the one real unknown, and it's the only reason I stop short of calling her the favorite. But she's walking and having just won a title, having beaten 4 seeds in a week, having handled whatever pressure a Grand Slam final week produces before, in Washington. The ankle is the other thing worth watching. If it's genuinely fine, she's a nightmare for this entire draw. If it isn't, everything changes, and none of us outside her team actually knows, which is true. Bencic played a great match. To be clear, she served well, took her chances, and deserved that win. But she beat a player who'd been on court 11 of the previous 14 days with nothing left in the tank. Put that same match in the second week of the Open, with rest days built in, and I don't believe the score is anywhere close to 6-love. The most dangerous seed in a draw is rarely the top seed. Everyone has tape on the top seed. Everyone has a plan. The dangerous one is the seed whose ranking undersells her, whose form is climbing, whose one weakness just got removed by the calendar, and who nobody has figured out how to prepare for. That's her. I'd much rather be drawn into the other half. I've said all season that nobody on tour is safe anymore, and people keep hearing that as a general comment about depth. It isn't general. It has a name, and that name is going to be sitting somewhere in that drawer in 3 weeks, and I'd rather be the one who said it out loud in August than the one who finds out on Ashe in September.